Hi everyone, my name is Alejandra. Today I'm going to show you how to connect the slicers to different pivot tables and pivot charts coming from the same source. If you like what you see here, please consider subscribing. So let's get started. So here we have our data. So what I'm going to start is to create a pivot table. I go to Insert, Pivot Table, and I want it in a new worksheet. So I say OK. And I start selecting the items, and I want the net position per item. Here I'm going to select currency, 0 decimals, and I say OK. So from here, I'm going to select my pivot table. I'm going to press Control, so you can see that the cursor now has a plus beside, and I'm going to move it where I want to copy my other pivot table. So I release, I press Control, I press the left side of my mouse, and I release here. So I copy the pivot tables, and here the second one I need to modify by I need to remove the item, I want the zone, and I want the total revenue per zone. And the next one will be, I'm going to remove the item. Now I want by manager, and for the managers I want to present the expenses. So let's modify the formatting here. I can right click in here and select value field settings, and same thing, number format and currency, no decimals, and I say OK and OK. Same thing here. Now I can click in here, values field settings, formatting, currency, 0 decimals, and say OK. Here we have our pivot tables ready to create our pivot chart. And I go and insert, select inside of my first pivot table, insert pivot chart, and here I'm going to select a bar and a bar chart and say OK. When we're working with pivot tables, our charts are quite limited, so I'm going to try to use some that are better for our presentation. In this case, hide. I'm going to right click here and select hide all field bottom chart, and I'm going to remove the total here. And the next, I'm going to insert a pivot chart, and here I'm going to select area, and I say OK, and I do the same here. Right click and hide all field bottoms on chart, and remove this total. And the last one, let's go and insert, and let's just insert a column chart. We have the bar already, so say OK. And this one I'm going to move it below this, and this one I'm going to expand because I have way too many products here. And in the last chart, I'm going to right click, hide all field bottoms, and remove the total. And I'm going to change the titles. Net position by item, enter. The next one will say revenue by zone, and the last one will say expenses by manager. Okay, now I have this. I need to insert my slicer. I'm going to click in one of the charts, and I go to insert, and I can insert a slicer from here, or I can go to pivot chart analyze, insert slicer, and I want 3 slicers, one by item, one by zone, and one by manager, and I click OK. So I'm going to move them over here so you can see. So what I'm gonna make some room. I'm gonna modify this. I'm in the slicer, and I have 12 items. I'm gonna create 12 columns. remove this one here. Okay. The zone, I have 4 zones. I create 4 columns. And manager, I have 5 managers. I'm going to create 5 columns here. Now we have our slicers here. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the headers. I'm going to right click at the first one, and I'm going to go to slicer settings and remove the checkmark in displays header, and I said okay. Same thing here. Just quickly, you can see okay. Right click, slicer settings, and display header, and remove the check mark. I can move my slicer more over here. Let's do the same thing here. Open a little more, and the next one, same thing. Resize it a little bit, and let's go here. So I will modify this formatting later on, but just to show you how it works. And the next thing that I want to do, I'm gonna name my pivot tables. Then I'm gonna go to the first one, and here pivot table analyze, and I'm gonna call this net position by item. Remember, when you are naming the pivot tables or naming ranges, you cannot have any spaces in between the words. So that's why I'm putting all the words together. I could put some underscores as well. So I press enter, and the next one will be called revenue by zone, just to be consistent with the chart titles. And the next one will be expenses by manager. Enter. I'm naming this because at the time that I connect the slicers to the pivot tables, it's just easier to connect it and realize what connections you are making. So in this case, we only have 3 pivot tables, but sometimes we have more, so it can get very confusing. In this case, by naming each one is easier to identify. So, and I just feel it's good practice to do that. Now that I have named my pivot tables, let me show you what happens if I change anything in the slicers. For example, here, you notice that this slicer is the only one that's changing. So let's say shirt. Nothing happens with the other ones, okay? So manager 4, I press Control to select several managers and several items. I press Control, and then you can see that this is the only chart that is changing. So that's why we're gonna create the connections, so that those connections will modify all the other charts that they are connected to. So let's go to this, right click to the first one, report connections, and then I want to select all the pivot tables here. You can see the names of each pivot table as well, and I said okay. And same thing with the other one, and I right click, report connections. I want to connect to the 3 of them. I said okay. Now you can see how this chart changed, because now this is connected as well, right? So with this and this. So next, last one, right click, report connections, and then select all of them, and I said okay. And now you can see that also changed, because now is being filtered by these 3 slicers. So, and these slicers control the charts and also control the pivot tables. So for example, if I go manager 1, you can see that the pivot tables change, and if I want just one zone, you see the information is changing here. And if I press, let's say, if I click zone A and I press shift and I select all the zones are presented here. Same thing with the items. Press shift, click here, and now all the items are presented. So same thing with the manager. So I'm gonna just change the formatting so I can give you a demonstration how this looks as final product. So I have finished formatting my pivot chart, and now I can show you how they are connected and controlled by the slicers or filtered by the slicers. And for example, here selecting a few items, and now selecting zone B and C, for example, and managers 1 and 4. So you can see that everything is interactive. When something happened there for the managers, it took a little bit of time just to change. And let's go with remove manager 2, for example. Now you can see everything is moving along. I just need to move, in this case, I just need to move this over here so we can see it, because I put the numbers in white. I maybe need to change it for black, but that's mine also. So you can see that it's interactive and it will be controlled by the slicer. Remember that you can also filter by the pivot tables. So you can clear the filter here or select items in here as well. So it works the same as the slicer. Right, so everything changes. I just find it very useful when we're having some presentations and we have the slicers in here. It gives a much better look to our presentations. I hope you found this helpful. If you like it, please give the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, share with anybody that you believe can benefit from this information. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.